Good afternoon, distinguished guests. Thank you for the introduction. I am FUKABORI, and I'm the Director of the Educational Facilities Research Center, NIER. First of all, I'd like to explain the broad outline of the purpose of this symposium, which we are holding jointly with Institute of Science Tokyo, inviting speakers from the three countries. So, in opening this, I'd like to speak about the background with which we have decided to invite Ireland, South Korea, and New Zealand. And also, I will speak about the reason why we are holding this symposium jointly with the Institute of Science Tokyo. I'd also like to give a brief introduction to the flow of this symposium and the differences and characteristics of the systems in each country, as we will listen to the presentations from the four countries in part 1. Please show the slide. I will take some time later. First, I'd like to speak about the purpose of this symposium. As Ms. Obara from the OECD mentioned in her opening remarks, there has been a project at the OECD for many years connecting school facilities, and two centers from Japan, our own center and the Center for Educational Facilities and Learning Environments at Institute of Science Tokyo, have participated in this project, leading international discussions on school facilities together with Ireland, South Korea, and New Zealand, which we have invited to participate in this symposium. For this reason, we have set up this framework to discuss with these centers and countries the roles and functions that will be required of school facilities in the future in response to COVID, digitization, and work style reforms, among others. So this was the background with which we decided to have this kind of a framework. As for the flow of this symposium, in the first part, which will start from now, we will have keynote speeches from the invited three countries about the situation in each country. Professor Satoru Nagasawa, a school architecture expert and visiting researcher at our institute and member of the expert committee at MEXT, will give a lecture on the situation in Japan. After that, in part 2, based on the keynote speech in part 1, we'd like to have in-depth discussions across the four countries on themes common to all of us. Before listening to the presentations from the four countries in part 1, I will briefly introduce the differences and characteristics of each country's system based on this table. First is the system, the party responsible for the development of school facilities and the size of the population. And in Japan, in South Korea, with populations of around 50 million, the national government only sets the basic direction and provides financial support, and the development of school facilities is carried out by local education boards and boards of education. Whereas in the case of Ireland and in New Zealand, with population of around 5 million, the National Education Ministry is directly responsible for the development of school facilities. So situation here in Ireland and New Zealand are different from that of Japan and South Korea. In Ireland and South Korea, compulsory education is 6 years, which is equivalent to Japanese elementary schools, and 3 years, which is equivalent to Japanese junior high school. In New Zealand, compulsory education is 7 years, equivalent to elementary school, and 5 years, equivalent to junior high school, of which compulsory education is until the age of 16. And at the age of 5, in the case of New Zealand, I understand that they are accepting the kindergarten students to the schools, for which the purpose is to connect the kindergartens and the elementary schools. Next is Ireland. One feature of the classroom and learning space in Ireland is that the typical classroom in elementary school, as can be seen here, has toilet and washroom and lockers. In the case of Japan, this seems to be the 4-bedroom space where the toilets and washrooms are connected in the hospitals. In the presentation, I hear that there will be an introduction to a case where a typical space has been renovated to allow more flexible use. Also, at the secondary school level in Ireland, there is a space, the special classroom for each subject, and the teacher is in the classroom, and the students move between the special classrooms according to the timetable, which is the right opposite of Japan, where the teacher moves between the classrooms. Korea seems to be similar to Japan in that it has regular classrooms and special classrooms, but at the secondary education level, there are also schools that have classrooms dedicated to specific subjects, as in the case of the Ireland. The biggest feature of Korea is that when elementary schools are renovated, there are cases where the classroom for first and second year students are equipped with things like attics, stages, and caves, as can be seen in this part. And I understand that we will be able to hear about this later in the presentation from the representative from South Korea. Next is New Zealand. As was mentioned, one of the characteristics of New Zealand is that the Ministry of Education directly sets guidance for the development of schools. Although it is not shown in this table, they have a cluster of 3 classrooms as one unit. And I have heard that New Zealand succeeded in controlling infections at the time of COVID to a considerable extent by taking thorough measures during the pandemic. I understand that the representative will speak about this issue today, especially focusing on ventilation systems in schools. Now I'd like you to listen to the keynote speeches from each country in the first part and listen to the panel discussion on the second part to think about the future. Thank you.